You're nearing 40. You sleep, but wake up tired. You rest, but don't recover. And at some point during the week, you've found yourself staring at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, unable to switch off. What if I told you there's a 10-minute protocol, validated by neuroscience, that can take your brain to a deeper state of recovery than many hours of sleep? It's not meditation. It's not yoga. It's not a supplement. It's something your own nervous system already knows how to do. You just never learned how to activate it. Every protocol in this channel is reviewed by a clinical pharmacist and researcher. Today, I'm going to teach you NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. And before you close this video, thinking you've seen this before, stay with me for 2 more minutes. Because what changes isn't what you'll learn. It's what you'll feel when you're finished. Let me ask you something honest. When was the last time you truly felt rested? Not just, I slept 8 hours rested. I mean that deep, cellular kind of rest, where you wake up and your body feels like it actually recovered overnight. Where your mind is clear before the first cup of coffee. Where you feel, genuinely, like yourself. If you had to think for a moment before answering, that's already telling you something important. Because here's what most people don't realize. Sleep and recovery are not the same thing. You can sleep for 9 hours and still wake up in a state of physiological stress. You can close your eyes and still have a nervous system that's running hot, processing, replaying, anticipating. The body is horizontal. The brain is still at the office. This is one of the most common and least discussed problems facing people over 40 today. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's not laziness. It's not even a sleep disorder in most cases. It's something far more specific and far more fixable. Your nervous system has lost the ability to downshift on command. Think of it this way. Imagine your body is a car. And for most of your adult life, you've been driving in 5th gear. Work, family, responsibility, ambition. You've built a life that demands performance every single day. And your nervous system adapted to that. It got very, very good at staying alert, at staying ready, at staying on. But here's the problem with a system that's always on. It forgets how to turn off. Not because something is broken, but because the off switch hasn't been used enough. And like any switch that goes untouched for years, it gets stiff, it gets resistant, and eventually you stop even reaching for it because you've accepted that this is just how I am now. You've heard it before. Maybe you've even said it yourself. I'm just a light sleeper. My mind doesn't stop at night. I need a drink to unwind. Otherwise, I can't come down. These aren't personality traits. They are symptoms of a nervous system that has been chronically under-recovered. And the research on this is unambiguous. Chronic under-recovery, even when total sleep hours look normal, accelerates biological aging, impairs cognitive function, increases cortisol reactivity, and quietly erodes the very things you're working so hard to protect. Your clarity, your health, your energy, your relationships. Dr. Andrew Huberman, professor of neurobiology at Stanford, has spoken extensively about the fact that the brain's ability to recover is not just about duration, it's about depth and state. What matters is whether the nervous system actually enters a low arousal, parasympathetic state. And the challenge for most high-functioning adults over 40 is that the nervous system has been so conditioned to stay alert that even when the body is at rest, the brain doesn't fully downshift. This is where NSDR comes in. Non-sleep deep rest is not a concept someone invented in a wellness retreat. It emerged from neuroscience research as a way to deliberately induce the brain states associated with deep recovery, without requiring actual sleep. It uses 2 primary mechanisms: controlled breathwork, and directed interoceptive attention, which is a precise way of saying you learn to consciously guide your own perception inward. And what happens when you do this, even for just 10 minutes, is remarkable. Your heart rate slows, your cortisol drops, your brain shifts from the high-frequency beta waves associated with active thinking and stress response into the slower alpha and theta waves associated with rest, creativity, and deep neurological recovery. The same waves that appear during the earliest stages of sleep. The same waves that allow your brain to consolidate learning, clear metabolic waste, and reset its emotional baseline. In other words, your body stops pretending to rest and actually starts to rest. And here's what I want you to sit with for a moment, because this matters. The people who live longest and live well longest are not necessarily the ones who sleep the most hours. They are the ones whose nervous systems know how to recover efficiently, who can shift states, who have built, either intentionally or through lifestyle, a kind of physiological flexibility that keeps their biology younger than their age. That flexibility is trainable, at any age, including yours. What we're going to walk through together today is one of the most accessible, evidence-based tools available for building that flexibility back, or building it for the very first time. No equipment, no subscription, no pharmaceutical support, just your breath, your attention, and 10 minutes. Before we get into the actual protocol, and we will, I promise, I want to make sure you understand why this works. Because when you understand the mechanism, you stop treating it like a trick. You start treating it like what it actually is, a tool, a precise physiological tool that you can use deliberately for the rest of your life. So let's talk about your nervous system for a moment. Not in the abstract, textbook way. In the real, lived, Tuesday afternoon kind of way. Your autonomic nervous system has two primary modes. You've probably heard of them. The sympathetic, fight or flight, and the parasympathetic, rest and digest. Most people understand these as opposites, which is roughly correct. But what most people don't understand is that these two systems are not like a light switch. They're more like a mixing board. At any given moment, both are active. The question is, which one is dominant, and by how much? When you're under stress, a difficult meeting, a health scare, a financial worry, even just a long to-do list, your sympathetic system ramps up. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing gets shallower. Blood is redirected from your digestive system and your prefrontal cortex toward your muscles and your survival instincts. Your body is preparing to act. This is not a malfunction. This is brilliance. This is millions of years of evolutionary design, keeping you alive and responsive. The problem is that in the modern world, especially for people in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, who carry real weight in their professional and personal lives, that sympathetic activation rarely fully turns off. It just lingers. Like a low hum you stop noticing until the power goes out and the silence hits you. That low hum has a cost, and over years and decades, it accumulates. Elevated baseline cortisol, disrupted sleep architecture, impaired immune response, increased inflammatory markers, reduced heart rate variability, which, if you follow any longevity research at all, you know is one of the most reliable predictors of biological age and cardiovascular health. These are not abstract risks. These are measurable changes happening in the body of someone whose nervous system never fully recovers. Now, here's where it gets interesting. One of the most powerful levers you have over your autonomic nervous system, and most people never use this consciously, is your breath. Your breathing is unique among all bodily functions. It is the only autonomic process that you can also control voluntarily. Your heart beats without your permission. Your digestion happens without your input. Your hormones release on their own schedule. But your breath? You can take it over. Right now, if you wanted to, you could slow it down, deepen it, hold it, extend it, and in doing so, you would be directly altering the state of your nervous system within seconds. This is not metaphor. This is physiology. When you extend your exhale, making it longer than your inhale, you activate the vagus nerve, which is the primary highway of the parasympathetic system. The vagus nerve runs from your brainstem all the way down through your heart, your lungs, your gut. It is, in a very literal sense, the biological infrastructure of calm. And a long, slow exhale, especially through slightly pursed lips, which creates a small resistance and slows the airflow even further, sends a direct signal through that nerve. It's safe to downshift now. Your heart rate slows in response, not because you decided to slow it down, but because you triggered the reflex. This is one of the two core mechanisms behind NSDR, and it's why the protocol begins the way it does. Not with visualization, not with counting, not with an app, but with 3 specific breaths. A deep inhale through the nose, a complete exhale through the mouth, through slightly pursed lips, until the lungs are fully empty. Repeated 3 times. Those 3 breaths are not ceremonial. They are not there to set the mood. They are a direct neurological intervention. By the time you've completed the 3rd exhale, your heart rate has already begun to shift. Your cortisol has begun to ease. Your brain is already receiving a different set of signals than it was 60 seconds ago. And that's the opening move. The second mechanism is what neuroscientists call interoceptive attention. And this one is less well known, but in some ways even more powerful for long-term nervous system health. Interoception is simply your brain's ability to perceive the internal state of your body. What your skin feels, what your muscles sense, whether there's tension here, warmth there, tingling somewhere else. Most of us have a remarkably underdeveloped relationship with this sense. Not because we're disconnected, but because modern life trains us to direct attention almost exclusively outward. Screens, notifications, other people's urgency. The next task, when you deliberately redirect that attention inward, when you consciously scan your body, section by section, and simply notice what's there without judgment. Something profound happens neurologically. The brain shifts its resource allocation. The regions associated with external vigilance and threat detection quiet down. The regions associated with body awareness and present-moment processing come online. And in that shift, in that quiet reorientation, the nervous system finds something it has been looking for all day. Permission to rest. Not because you forced it, not because you took something, but because you let it there, deliberately, using the most sophisticated biofeedback system ever designed, your own attention. This is what we're going to practice together. And I want you to understand, before we begin, that you don't need to do this perfectly. You don't need to achieve some special state. You don't need to feel anything in particular. The only thing you need to do is follow along, honestly, with your attention as your only tool. That's enough. In fact, that's everything. There's a state your brain enters naturally every single night, right at the edge of sleep. You know the one. That moment when you're not quite awake anymore, but you're not fully asleep either. When thoughts start to lose their edges. When the internal narrator goes quiet for the first time all day. When your body feels heavy in a way that actually feels good. Not exhausted, but genuinely, peacefully heavy. That state has a name. It's called the hypnagogic state. And neuroscientists have known for decades that it is one of the most neurologically rich and restorative states a human brain can enter. It's characterized by a specific blend of brainwave activity, primarily alpha and theta waves, that appear during light sleep, during deep meditation, and during certain forms of deliberate rest. What most people don't know, and this is one of the most important things I can tell you today, is that this state is not exclusive to the moments before sleep. It can be accessed deliberately while you are awake, using exactly the kind of attentional and breathing practices that form the foundation of NSDR. And when you access it intentionally, even for just 10 minutes, the benefits are measurable and significant. A 2021 study published in the journal Nature Neuroscience found that a 20-minute NSDR session after learning a new skill enhanced the retention of that skill by up to 50% compared to a control group that simply rested without the protocol. The researchers observed that the brain, during this state, actively replayed and consolidated the neural patterns associated with the new learning, essentially doing in 10 to 20 minutes what would otherwise require a full sleep cycle to achieve. Let that sink in for a moment. 50% improvement in learning retention, from 10 to 20 minutes of deliberate rest, without sleep. Now, you might be thinking, that's interesting for students or young people learning new skills. But what does that have to do with me? Everything. Because learning consolidation is not just about memorizing facts or acquiring motor skills. It is about the brain's ability to integrate new information, update old patterns, and adapt to the demands being placed on it. And for someone in their 40s or 50s, someone who is navigating complexity in their career, managing a household, making consequential decisions every day, the brain's capacity to integrate and adapt is not a luxury. It is the foundation of performance, of wisdom, of good judgment under pressure. When that capacity is diminished, when the brain doesn't get sufficient recovery to consolidate and reorganize, you feel it in specific ways. You're slower to find the right word. You replay conversations looking for the thing you should have said. You make decisions you later question, not because you lack intelligence, but because your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for nuanced, long-term thinking, is running on insufficient recovery. This is not aging. This is under-recovery masquerading as aging. And the distinction matters enormously. There's another dimension of NSDR that doesn't get talked about enough, and I want to spend a moment here because I think it will resonate with you specifically. Dopamine. You've heard of it. Most people associate it with pleasure or reward, the feeling you get when something good happens. But dopamine is far more than that. It is the neurochemical foundation of motivation, drive, and what researchers call subjective energy. That feeling of having something in reserve, of being able to show up fully, of wanting to engage with your life rather than just moving through it. Dopamine is depleted by chronic stress, by poor sleep, by the constant low-grade stimulation of a hyper-connected world. And here's what's particularly insidious about dopamine depletion. It doesn't announce itself dramatically. It doesn't knock you flat. It just quietly dims the light. Things that used to excite you feel neutral. Effort that used to feel energizing starts feeling like a burden. You still function, sometimes very well, by external measures, but something inside feels like it's running on reserve fuel. Research from Huberman Lab and others has shown that NSDR protocols, specifically the combination of deep breathwork and body scan attention, significantly upregulate dopamine recovery. The brain, given a genuine window of low stimulation, low-demand rest, begins to restore its dopamine baseline, not through artificial spike, but through natural replenishment. This is why people who practice NSDR regularly don't just report feeling calmer. They report feeling more motivated, more engaged, more like themselves. Not because the protocol is stimulating them, but because it is allowing the system to refill what chronic stress and under-recovery have been quietly draining. Think about what that means in practical terms. You finish a 10-minute NSDR session in the early afternoon, the time when most people in their 40s hit that familiar wall, the one that sends them toward a second or third coffee. Instead of reaching for caffeine, which borrows energy from tomorrow to pay for today, you give your nervous system 10 minutes of genuine recovery. And you come out the other side with restored dopamine, a quieter cortisol response, and a brain that is genuinely ready to engage again. Not wired, not artificially stimulated. Ready. There is a profound difference between those two states. And once you feel it, once you experience what genuine neurological recovery feels like compared to the false peak of a stimulant, you won't confuse them again. I want to say one more thing before we move into the protocol itself. You might have a voice in the back of your mind right now saying, 10 minutes. I don't have 10 minutes. I want to gently push back on that, not because I think your schedule isn't demanding, I'm sure it is, but because I've come to believe, after years of looking at the research and at the lives of high-performing people over 40, that I don't have 10 minutes is not a time management problem. It's a permission problem. You haven't given yourself permission to stop, to be still, to do something that looks, from the outside, like nothing, but is, on the inside, some of the most productive work your biology can do. That permission is the first step, and you're already here. Let's talk about what actually happens when you sit down, or lie down, to do this. Because there's a gap that most people fall into, and I want to help you avoid it before it becomes a reason to quit. The gap between knowing something is good for you and actually being able to do it consistently, without fighting yourself every time. That gap is usually not about willpower. It's about setup. The way you enter a practice matters more than most people realize. Not because there's some ritual required. There isn't. But because your nervous system is exquisitely sensitive to context. It reads the environment around you as signals. And those signals either support the transition into recovery or work against it. So, before we walk through the protocol step by step, let me give you a few things that make a real difference. Not rules, just intelligence worth having. The first is position. NSDR can be done seated or lying down. Both work, but they work slightly differently. And it's worth knowing which suits your situation. Lying down allows for deeper physical release. Gravity does some of the work for you, and your muscles don't have to hold anything up. The risk is that if you're genuinely fatigued, you may drift into actual sleep, which isn't a failure. Sleep is valuable, but it does mean you miss the conscious practice. Seated, with your back supported, keeps you at the edge of alert, present enough to follow the protocol, relaxed enough to drop into the recovery state. For most people doing this in the middle of a workday, between meetings, during a lunch break, in a quiet office or car, seated is more practical and more reliable. Choose what fits. Don't overthink it. The protocol works either way. The second thing is your eyes. Close them. This one is non-negotiable. And here's why. Roughly 80% of your brain's sensory processing in the waking state is devoted to vision. When your eyes are open, your brain is constantly doing an enormous amount of work, tracking movement, processing contrast, monitoring your environment for anything that requires a response. That processing is sympathetic in nature. It keeps you alert, which is exactly what we're trying to step away from. When you close your eyes, you remove the single largest source of external stimulation. The brain doesn't have to monitor anything. And in that reduction of input, something interesting happens. Attention naturally begins to turn inward. The brain starts to feel its own interior, which is exactly where we want it. Third, and this one surprises people, is the breath before the breath. Most people approach a relaxation practice with the expectation that they'll feel calm immediately. And when they don't, when the mind is still busy, when the body still feels tense, they interpret that as the practice not working. So they try harder, or they give up. What they're missing is a transition. The nervous system doesn't shift from full sympathetic activation to parasympathetic recovery like a light switch. It shifts like a large ship changing course, gradually, with intention, and with a little patience at the beginning. The first 1 to 2 minutes of NSDR are the transition. They're not supposed to feel profoundly relaxed. They're supposed to feel like the beginning of something. This is why the protocol opens with 3 specific breaths: a deep inhale through the nose and a long, complete exhale through the mouth, through slightly pursed lips, as if you're breathing out through a very small opening. Slowly, until the lungs are entirely empty. That pursing of the lips is deliberate. It creates resistance in the airflow, slowing the exhale, extending its duration, and amplifying the vagal activation we talked about earlier. The longer and slower the exhale, the stronger the parasympathetic signal. These 3 breaths are your physiological on-ramp, your body's way of being told, in a language it understands without words, we are downshifting now. After those 3 breaths, you return to normal breathing, easy, natural, unforced. And from that point forward, the breath is not something you control, it's something you observe. The control phase is over. The rest is attention. Fourth, and this is perhaps the most counterintuitive thing I'll say today, don't try to clear your mind. I want to say that again because it goes against almost everything popular culture has told you about relaxation and meditation. Don't try to clear your mind. Your mind will think. Thoughts will come. Fragments of conversation. Tomorrow's agenda. A worry you haven't resolved. A memory you didn't invite. This is not interference. This is what minds do. The attempt to stop thinking creates its own tension. A kind of meta-stress where you're now stressed about being stressed, distracted about being distracted. What NSDR asks of you instead is something far simpler and far more achievable. Redirect your attention. Not suppress your thoughts. Redirect your attention back to the body, back to the sensations, back to whatever part of you the spotlight is currently resting on. The thought arrives. You notice it. You don't follow it. You bring the spotlight back to your feet, or your legs, or your chest, and you continue. That act of redirection, of noticing you've drifted and gently returning, is not a failure of the practice. It is the practice. Every time you do it, you are training a neurological capacity that has profound implications far beyond these 10 minutes. The ability to choose where your attention goes, to be the director of your own perception rather than a passenger swept along by whatever's loudest. This is a skill. And like any skill, it improves with repetition. The first time you do this protocol, you may redirect 15 times in 10 minutes. After a few weeks of practice, it may be 5. After a few months, the mind settles more quickly. Not because thoughts stop coming, but because the habit of returning becomes easier, faster, more automatic. You are not trying to achieve silence. You are practicing navigation. There's one more thing I want to address, because I hear it often from people who try practices like this for the first time and walk away disappointed. I didn't feel anything. This one I understand completely. We live in a world of intense, immediate sensation. We're used to feedback that's fast and obvious. When you take 10 minutes to lie still and breathe and move a spotlight of attention through your body, and you don't feel some wave of bliss or dramatic shift, it's easy to conclude that nothing happened. But something happened. Your cortisol dropped. Your heart rate variability improved, Your dopamine recovery began. Your brain spent 10 minutes in a state it desperately needed and rarely gets. These are not experiences you feel in the moment. They are biological events that unfold beneath the level of conscious sensation and manifest hours later as a quieter evening, a clearer mind, a body that comes down faster at bedtime. The practice works whether or not you feel it working. Trust the mechanism. Not because I'm asking you to take something on faith, but because the research is unambiguous and your body is not indifferent to what you give it. Give it 10 minutes and mean it. All right, let's walk through this together. I want you to imagine that you're doing this right now, wherever you are. Maybe you're sitting in a chair. Maybe you're in your car between appointments. Maybe it's late afternoon and you've carved out 10 minutes before the evening begins. Wherever you are, this works. The protocol doesn't require a special room or a specific cushion or silence. It requires your attention. That's it. So, you've chosen your position, seated or lying down. Your eyes are closed or about to be. And you've made a quiet agreement with yourself that for the next 10 minutes, nothing outside this moment needs your response. That agreement is the foundation. Everything else is technique. Step 1. The 3 opening breaths. Inhale deeply. Through your nose if you can. Through your mouth if you need to. Fill your lungs slowly, fully. And then exhale completely. Through your mouth, through lips that are only slightly open, as if you're breathing out through a narrow straw. Slow, controlled, until there is nothing left in your lungs. Do that again. Inhale fully. Exhale completely, slowly, through pursed lips. And one more time. Inhale and exhale, all the way, until you feel the bottom of your breath. Then let your breathing return to its natural rhythm. Don't manage it. Don't optimize it. Just let it be what it is. You've just activated your vagus nerve. Your heart rate has already begun to ease. Your body received the signal. Now we work with attention. Step 2. The spotlight. In your mind's eye, not on a screen, not as a visual exercise, but simply as a directed sense of awareness. Imagine yourself floating slightly above your own body, looking down at it. And imagine you're holding a spotlight, a quiet, warm beam of focused attention. Direct that spotlight to your feet, not your whole body, just your feet. The soles specifically. Whatever they happen to be in contact with right now. Socks, shoes, bare floor, air. Simply notice. Is there warmth, pressure, tingling, numbness? It doesn't matter what the answer is. The act of asking is what matters. You are redirecting your brain's resources from the external world to the interior of your body. Stay there for a moment. Just the feet, breathing naturally. Now, slowly, expand that spotlight. Let it grow to include the tops of your feet, your ankles, your shins and calves, your knees. Let it rise to include your thighs, the backs of your legs, your hips. Your entire lower body is now inside that beam of attention. And here, with your full lower body illuminated in your awareness, take one more deep breath. Inhale fully, and as you exhale through pursed lips, imagine your lower body sinking, just slightly, a centimeter deeper into whatever surface it's resting against. A small, physical release, real, not imagined. Let gravity do what it's already trying to do. Then return to natural breathing. Step 3. Moving upward. Shift the spotlight now to your abdomen. Notice the gentle rise and fall as you breathe. As you inhale, Your stomach expands slightly outward. This is correct. This is diaphragmatic breathing, the body's natural pattern when it isn't under stress. As you exhale, it falls. Just watch that for a few breaths without changing it. Then let the spotlight rise to your upper abdomen, your chest, your rib cage expanding with each breath. Let it include your shoulders, your neck, your arms hanging at your sides or resting in your lap. Notice the contact points, where your arms rest against your body or the armrests. The slight weight of your hands. Inhale deeply. And as you exhale, slowly, completely, imagine your upper body releasing, settling, sinking just slightly into itself. Step 4. The face and the head. This is where most people carry the tension they don't know they're carrying. Bring the spotlight up to your face. Your jaw. Is it clenched? Even slightly? Let it soften. Not by forcing it open, but by simply releasing the effort of holding it closed. Your forehead? Is there a furrow there? A subtle tightening between the brows? Let it smooth. Your eyes, even behind closed lids, let them be still, unfocused, soft. The muscles of the face are among the most expressive in the human body. They are also among the most reactive to emotional state. When the face releases, the brain receives a signal. The performance is over. We are no longer presenting ourselves to the world. We are simply here. Let your scalp relax. The back of your head. Your neck. Breathe naturally. Step 5. The full body. Now, in your mind's eye, expand the spotlight to include your entire body at once. Head to feet. The whole of it, illuminated in your awareness simultaneously. And as you hold that expanded attention, deliberately dim the light. Make the beam softer, less intense. Let the edges blur. This is the deepest point of the protocol. Your brain is now doing something remarkable. Maintaining internal awareness without external demand, without task, without output. This is the state. Not a destination you arrive at dramatically. Just this quiet, whole, unhurried presence inside your own body. Take one final deep breath here. Inhale fully and exhale completely. And as you do, let everything you are holding sink down one last time. Then, breathe normally and simply remain. Step 6. The return. After several minutes in this state, you'll begin to feel the protocol completing itself. And here's how you come back. Move your toes, just slightly. Not dramatically, just a small intentional movement. Notice something profound in that moment. You chose to move, and it happened. Your nervous system is yours. Your attention is yours. You are not a passenger in your own body. Wiggle your ankles. Bend your knees gently. Move your upper body from side to side, just slightly. Just enough to feel the weight of yourself returning. Move your hands. Lift your arms a few inches and set them down again. Turn your head slowly from side to side, and then, slowly, open your eyes. The first thing you'll notice is how much visual information floods back in. The room, the light, the details of the world around you. And in that contrast, in the difference between the quiet interior you just inhabited and the busy exterior you're returning to, you'll feel something you may not have felt in a long time. The precise, unmistakable feeling of having genuinely rested. Welcome back. Before I continue, and I promise what's coming next is worth staying for, I need to pause for just a second. We're getting close to something really important for this channel. And if you've made it this far with me, through the science, through the protocol, through everything we've covered together, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Someone who takes their health seriously. Someone who wants to understand why, not just what. So if you're not subscribed yet, I want to invite you to do that right now. We're close to a milestone that genuinely matters to us. And every single person who joins this community is part of something we're building carefully and with real intention. And I'll say this clearly. Every protocol on this channel is reviewed by a clinical pharmacist and researcher. This isn't wellness content dressed up in science language. This is the real work. And it's made for people like you who are done settling for vague advice. Subscribe, hit the bell, and bring someone with you. Someone you care about who needs to hear what we talk about here. All right. Now, where were we? What happens when you do this not once, but consistently? Because that's the real question, isn't it? 1 session is interesting. 10 sessions is a habit. 30 sessions is a different nervous system. And I don't use that phrase lightly. The human nervous system is neuroplastic, meaning it literally rewires itself in response to repeated experience. Every time you practice NSDR, you are not just recovering in that moment. You are training a neural pathway. You are making it slightly easier for your brain to find that state the next time, and the time after that. Until, over weeks and months, the downshift becomes something your body does more readily, more completely, and more automatically. This is the compounding effect of recovery practice. And it mirrors, in a precise way, what we understand about physical training. The first time you run a mile, it's hard. The 10th time, it's easier. Not because the mile got shorter, but because your body adapted. It built the infrastructure for that demand. NSDR works the same way. The first session may feel effortful. The mind wanders often. The body holds tension it isn't ready to release. That's normal. That's the beginning of the adaptation. By the second week, something shifts. The opening breaths start to land faster. The spotlight moves more naturally. The mind still wanders, but the return feels smoother, more practiced, less like fighting, and more like steering. By the end of the first month, people consistently report something that I find deeply meaningful. They begin to notice their nervous system during the day in ways they never did before. They catch the moment stress begins to build, and they have a tool for it. They feel the difference between genuine tiredness and sympathetic overdrive. They become, in the truest sense, more literate in the language their body has always been speaking. This is not a small thing. This is a fundamental shift in self-awareness. And for someone over 40, someone who has decades of high-demand living behind them and, ideally, decades more ahead, this kind of physiological literacy is one of the most protective things you can develop. Let me be specific about what the research shows changes with consistent NSDR practice over 4 to 8 weeks. Heart rate variability, that key marker of nervous system flexibility and biological age, measurably improves, not slightly, significantly. Studies on regular practitioners of NSDR-adjacent practices show HRV improvements of 15 to 25% within 6 to 8 weeks. In longevity terms, that is the equivalent of meaningfully reversing biological aging in one of its most trackable biomarkers. Cortisol patterns normalize. The morning cortisol awakening response, which should be sharp and strong in a healthy system, giving you natural energy and focus early in the day, becomes more pronounced and more predictable. The evening cortisol, which should be low, allowing melatonin to rise and sleep to deepen, drops more reliably. The rhythm returns. And when the cortisol rhythm is healthy, almost everything else downstream improves. Sleep quality, immune function, metabolic efficiency, emotional regulation, sleep architecture changes. People who practice NSDR regularly report falling asleep more easily, not because they're more sedated, but because their nervous system has practiced the transition. The off-ramp is well maintained. The brain knows the route, and the quality of sleep deepens. More time in slow-wave sleep, more time in REM, better consolidation, better restoration. Cognitive sharpness improves, particularly in the domains most affected by chronic under-recovery. Working memory, verbal fluency, executive function, the capacity to hold complexity without becoming reactive. People describe feeling more present in conversations, more patient, more capable of nuanced thinking under pressure. And then there's something harder to quantify, but perhaps most important of all, a sense of agency. When you practice NSDR consistently, you stop feeling like someone who is done to by their own nervous system. You stop being the person who can't wind down, who lies awake replaying the day, who reaches for something external every time the internal pressure rises. You become someone who has a tool, who knows what to do, who has proven to themselves repeatedly in 10-minute increments that they can shift their own state. That kind of confidence is not arrogance. It is the quiet, grounded certainty that comes from having built something real inside yourself. And it changes how you move through your days. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in the accumulation of small moments, a breath taken before a difficult conversation, a 10-minute practice instead of a third coffee, an evening that comes down gently instead of crashing. A different kind of life begins to take shape. One that is not just longer, but genuinely better. I want to talk about the things that get in the way. Not because I want to prepare you for failure, but because I've seen too many people build a genuine practice, hit a predictable obstacle, interpret it as a personal flaw, and quietly abandon something that was actually working. The obstacles are real. They're also almost entirely universal. And when you know them in advance, they lose most of their power. The first one hits in the first week. The feeling that you're doing it wrong. It arrives usually around day 3 or 4. The novelty of the first sessions has worn off. You're settling into the practice, and suddenly it feels less clean than it did at the beginning. Your mind wanders more than it seemed to before. The spotlight feels harder to hold. The body doesn't release as readily. And a voice shows up, quiet but persistent. I'm not doing this right. This isn't working for me the way it works for other people. Here is what's actually happening in those moments. You're becoming more aware. In the first sessions, you were following instructions closely, almost mechanically. There wasn't much space to notice how busy the mind actually was, how resistant the body actually was. By week 2, you're relaxed enough in the format that you start to perceive what was always there. The noise, the tension, the habitual restlessness. This is not regression. This is depth. A beginner swimmer doesn't notice the current because they're focused entirely on staying afloat. An experienced swimmer feels the current clearly because they have enough skill to perceive it. What feels like difficulty is actually increased sensitivity. And increased sensitivity is the beginning of real change. Stay with it, especially when it feels imperfect, especially then. The second obstacle is time, or more precisely, the story around time. I mentioned earlier that I don't have 10 minutes is a permission problem more than a time problem. But I want to go deeper on this, because the resistance is real, and it deserves a real response. For most high-functioning adults over 40, rest carries a subtle but powerful association with unproductivity. Somewhere along the way, probably early in your career, probably reinforced by years of output-based reward, You internalize the idea that doing nothing is losing ground. That stillness is the enemy of momentum. That the moment you stop, someone else is moving ahead. This belief served you in certain seasons of life. It built things. It achieved things. I'm not dismissing it, but it is now costing you more than it's earning. The research on recovery and performance is unambiguous. The athletes, executives, surgeons, and leaders who sustain high performance over decades are not the ones who never stop. They are the ones who have learned to recover with the same intentionality they bring to their work. Recovery is not the absence of performance. It is the infrastructure that makes sustained performance possible. 10 minutes of NSDR is not 10 minutes lost. It is an investment in the quality and availability of every hour that follows it. When you understand that, genuinely, not just intellectually, the permission problem dissolves. Because you're not choosing between rest and productivity. You're choosing between short-term output and long-term capacity. And for someone who intends to be performing well at 60, at 70, at 80, that is not a close call. The third obstacle is subtler and, in my experience, the most persistent. The discomfort of stillness itself. For many people, particularly those who have been high achievers for most of their adult lives, stillness is genuinely uncomfortable. Not physically, psychologically. When the external demands quiet down and the internal noise becomes audible, what sometimes surfaces is not peace. It's everything that busyness has been keeping at bay. Worries that haven't been processed, emotions that haven't been felt, questions about direction and meaning that don't have easy answers. The body lies still, and the mind finally has space, and it fills that space with the unfinished business of a full life. This is not a malfunction of the practice. This is the practice doing exactly what it's supposed to do, creating the conditions for integration, for the nervous system to finally process what it hasn't had the bandwidth to process. It is uncomfortable, and it is also, in a very real sense, necessary. I'm not suggesting that NSDR is therapy. It isn't. And if you're carrying significant unprocessed stress or trauma, working with a professional is important and irreplaceable. But for the ordinary weight of a full, demanding, imperfect life, the kind of weight that accumulates quietly over decades, the stillness of a regular recovery practice creates a container for integration that most people genuinely lack. Over time, the discomfort of stillness decreases, not because the questions disappear, but because the nervous system stops treating them as threats. You become more comfortable with not having every answer resolved before you can rest. And that shift, from needing resolution to being at peace with process, is one of the quieter gifts of a consistent practice. The fourth obstacle is the most practical and the easiest to solve: inconsistency of timing. The nervous system responds powerfully to rhythm and pattern. When you practice NSDR at the same time each day, or close to it, your body begins to anticipate the state shift. The downshift happens faster. The depth increases. The practice becomes more efficient. But when timing varies wildly, today at noon, tomorrow at 7 in the evening, skipped entirely for 3 days, the body can't build that anticipatory response. Each session starts from scratch, without the momentum of pattern. The recommendation from both research and experience is simple. Anchor your practice to an existing habit. After lunch, before you open your afternoon emails, right after the kids leave for school. The specific time matters less than the consistency of the anchor. Link it to something that already happens reliably, and the practice inherits that reliability. 10 minutes, same window, every day. That's the whole system. And within a few weeks, your body will remind you when it's time, before your calendar does. One last thing I want to say about obstacles, and then we move toward the close. There will be days when you do the 10 minutes and feel nothing particularly notable afterward. Days when the mind was busy the whole time, when the body stayed tight, when the spotlight kept slipping. Days when you wonder if it's worth continuing. On those days, especially those days, it was worth it. The practice is not measured by how it feels in the session. It is measured by the accumulation of sessions, by the neural pathway that gets traced a little deeper each time. Regardless of how conscious or flowing or peaceful any individual session felt. The brain doesn't grade your effort. It simply responds to the input. Show up, even imperfectly, especially imperfectly, because imperfect consistency is worth infinitely more than perfect intention. I want to zoom out for a moment, because everything we've covered today, the breathwork, the spotlight, the neuroscience, the obstacles, the compounding effect of consistency, all of it points towards something larger than a 10-minute protocol. And I think you deserve to hear it said plainly. We are living in a culture that has fundamentally confused stimulation with vitality. We reach for things that make us feel more alert, more productive, more connected, more entertained. And we've become so accustomed to that constant reaching that we've lost the ability to simply be without it. And for people over 40 who grew up in a world that was loud but not quite this loud, who remember what it felt like to be bored without anxiety, this loss is felt in a specific, recognizable way. Something is missing. You're not sure what. Life is full by most measures, but something underneath feels thin. I believe, and the research increasingly supports this, that what's missing is not more. It's depth. It's the capacity to inhabit your own experience fully, without constant external input. To be present in your body, in your relationships, in your thoughts, without the low-grade discomfort of a system that never truly settles. NSDR is one tool for recovering that depth, but it points toward a broader philosophy, one that the longest-lived, most functionally vital people in the world seem to embody, regardless of their culture or geography or specific health practices. They know how to rest, really rest, not collapse. Rest, deliberately, skillfully, without guilt. The Blue Zone's research, those long-term studies of communities with unusually high concentrations of people living past 90 in good health, consistently identifies something beyond diet and movement. It identifies what researchers call downshifting, daily practices of deliberate stress reduction that are built into the culture, not added on top of it. A nap after lunch in Sardinia, a quiet hour at sunset in Okinawa, a Sabbath that is genuinely honored in the Seventh-day Adventist communities of Loma Linda. These are not coincidences. They are structural features of lives that sustain vitality over time. The common denominator is not the specific practice. It's the intentionality, the daily, non-negotiable commitment to giving the nervous system what it needs to recover before the debt becomes too large to repay. Most of us in the modern world have no equivalent. We've replaced the nap with a coffee. We've replaced the quiet hour with a scroll. We've replaced the Sabbath with a catch-up day that is anything but restful. And we've told ourselves that this is what modern life requires, that we'll rest when things slow down, when the kids are older, when the project is finished, when we retire. But the nervous system doesn't defer its needs. It presents the bill regardless of your schedule. And the longer the bill goes unpaid, the larger the interest becomes. In inflammation, in cognitive decline, in the kind of deep fatigue that sleep alone can no longer fix. I'm not saying this to frighten you. I'm saying it because you are clearly someone who pays attention to your health. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, at this point in a video like this one. And people who pay attention to their health deserve to understand the full picture. The full picture is this: recovery is not a supplement to a healthy life. It is the foundation of one. Everything else you do, the exercise, the nutrition, the supplements, the cold exposure, the sauna, the strength training, the sleep hygiene, all of it delivers a fraction of its potential benefit if the nervous system is chronically under-recovered. Because all of those practices work through the same final pathway. They create a stimulus, and the body adapts to that stimulus during recovery. No recovery, no adaptation. It's that simple and that important. This is why elite athletic programs have moved so dramatically toward recovery science in the last decade. The training hasn't gotten harder, it's gotten smarter. And the smartest insight has been this: you don't get stronger during the workout, you get stronger during the recovery from the workout. The workout is the signal. Recovery is where the biology happens. Your life, at 40 or 50 or 60, is the workout. Every demand you meet, every challenge you navigate, every form of stress you absorb. That is the stimulus. And NSDR, 10 minutes daily, with nothing more than your breath and your attention, is one of the most precise, accessible, evidence-based recovery tools available to you. Not instead of sleep, alongside it. Not instead of exercise, supporting it. Not instead of anything you're already doing, but underneath all of it, as a foundation that makes everything else work better. There's a concept in strength training called the minimum effective dose, the smallest stimulus that produces the desired adaptation. Anything below it does nothing. Anything above it is either redundant or harmful. And for nervous system recovery, the research consistently points towards something remarkably small as the minimum effective dose. 10 minutes, once a day, done honestly. That's the threshold. Below it, you maintain. At it, and consistently above it, you adapt. You build. You develop a nervous system that is not just surviving the demands of your life, but genuinely resilient to them. Flexible, recoverable, biologically younger than its chronological age. And here's what I find most remarkable about all of this. The thing that still moves me when I think about it clearly. The capacity for this recovery already exists inside you. It was never removed. It was never broken. It was simply buried under years of overstimulation, under recovery, and a culture that forgot to teach you how to use it. NSDR doesn't give you something new. It gives you access to something ancient, something your nervous system has always known how to do, and is waiting right now to do again. You don't have to earn this. You don't have to be further along in your health journey. You don't have to have everything else figured out first. You just have to close your eyes, take the breath, and begin. There's a man I think about sometimes, 62 years old, successful by every visible measure, built a company, raised a family, traveled the world. By the time he came across a practice like this one, he had been running, truly running, for nearly 4 decades. Not metaphorically, literally. Always moving, always producing, always one step ahead of something he couldn't quite name. He tried NSDR almost reluctantly. 10 minutes, lying on the floor of his home office, feeling slightly ridiculous. His mind wouldn't stop. He kept thinking about emails, about a conversation he'd had that morning, about whether this was a waste of time. He did it anyway. And then he did it again the next day, and the day after that. 3 weeks in, his wife said something to him at dinner. She didn't comment on his productivity, or his energy, or his sleep, though all of those had shifted. She said something simpler. "You seem like you're actually here." He didn't know what to say, because she was right. And because he hadn't realized, until that moment, how long he hadn't been. I've spent a long time today talking about neuroscience, about cortisol and dopamine and heart rate variability and vagal tone. And all of that is real, and all of it matters. The research is solid, the mechanisms are clear, the benefits are measurable, but none of that is the real reason to do this. The real reason is simpler and harder and more personal than any biomarker. It's the possibility of being actually present in your own life, not performing it, not managing it from a slight distance behind the glass of chronic overstimulation and under-recovery, but inhabiting it fully, directly, with the kind of presence that makes ordinary moments feel like they count for something. The meals, the conversations, the quiet mornings, the people who are still here, and the ones you haven't called in too long. That presence is not guaranteed by success. It is not purchased by achievement. It is cultivated, quietly, daily, in 10-minute increments, by a nervous system that has been given what it needs to actually land in the life that surrounds it. You came into this video knowing you were tired. Maybe not in a dramatic way. Maybe just in that accumulated, invisible way that people over 40 carry, where the weight isn't any one thing but the sum of all the things, pressing down so gradually that you stopped noticing it was there. You now have a tool, a real one. Not a concept, a practice. Something you can do today, in 10 minutes, with your eyes closed and your breath as your only equipment. What you do with it is yours. But I'll say this, the people who look back on their lives with genuine satisfaction, not pride in their accomplishments, though that matters too, but satisfaction, the deep kind, the kind that doesn't require an audience. They are almost never the people who push the hardest without stopping. They are the people who learn, somewhere along the way, to be as intentional about recovery as they were about effort. They learned to come home, to themselves, regularly, before it was too late. You don't have to wait to learn that. If this conversation meant something to you, if even one thing shifted in how you understand your own body, your own nervous system, your own capacity for recovery, I'd ask you to do something simple. Share this with 5 people. Not randomly, specifically. Think of 5 people in your life who are running too hard, resting too little, and have no idea that 10 minutes a day could change the trajectory of how they age. People you care about enough to interrupt their scroll with something real. Send it to them today, before the moment passes. And if you're not yet part of this community, subscribe to the channel. Because what we build here, we build carefully. Every protocol reviewed by a clinical pharmacist and researcher. Every video made for people who are serious about living well, not just living long. Leave a comment below. Not a reaction, a real one. Tell me what landed. Tell me what you're going to try. And tell me what you want us to cover next. The next video gets built from what this community needs. And that means your voice matters here. 10 minutes, eyes closed. Breath as your guide. A spotlight. Moving slowly through the body you've carried through everything. That body has been waiting for this longer than you know. This channel is done performing wellness. We're here to actually practice it. See you in the next one.